Hey, this is Nick, co-designer of Corridors of Power. Today I'm going to give you a quick run through of how to play the game. Corridors of Power is the hilarious and devious game of politics where players need to build trust with one another, but when the time is right, betray each other and lie to seize power for themselves. Sound familiar?
This How to Play video has 5 sections. First, we outline the objective of the game. Second, we step through how to get set up for play. Third and fourth, we go through the 2 phases of each turn. The deal-making phase, during which players gather resources and build alliances. And then, the policy creation phase, during which players propose a policy for a vote. Finally, we cover how points are calculated at the end of the game. A simple summary of the rules is included in the How to Play card in the box and can be useful to follow along as you watch this video.
The point of the game is to build political power by passing policies.
You can earn power or victory points in 3 ways. First, you immediately score points whenever you pass a policy. Second, you have a secret mission given to you by your special interest group. And finally, you can earn points by ensuring the overall balance of big business, progressive, and worker policies at the end of the game matches the constituent cards in your hand. I'll cover the scoring in detail at the end of this video.
At the start of the game, players are dealt some cards which only they see. First, constituents. Constituents tell you if you're aligned with big business, progressives, workers, or a combination.
Take the constituent card deck and exclude the constituent cards based on the game size indicator in the bottom left of the card. Distribute to each player the following: 5 constituent cards. Put any excess cards back in the box. 2 special interest cards. Players keep 1 and put 1 back in the box. 1 cabinet member. 2 yellow influence tokens. 1 brown smear token. And 10 coloured supporter marker cubes. In games of 3 to 4 players, you'll use the white dice. In games of 5 or 6 players, you'll use the black dice. To set up the board, take the policy cards and sort them into minor, major, and headline policies. Then lay out the past policy, policy landscape, and policy wasteland markers, and the policy landscape section deal out the cards into 6 columns, starting with 1 row of headline policies, then 2 rows of major policies, and then 2 rows of minor policies. Okay, you're ready to start playing. Players take turns, with each turn having 2 phases. In the deal-making phase, you announce a player to deal with. Then roll the dice and choose which dice you will receive and which you'll give to the other player. On the dice, you'll find combinations of resource bundles. Yellow dots give you influence, which can be used to vote for policy. Brown dots give you smear, which can be used to sabotage a policy vote. There are cabinet members, which give you one-time special powers that can be stored and used at the perfect moment. And the protest symbol gives you the power to move one policy from the policy landscape to the policy wasteland, or vice versa. This can be used to strategically influence what policies are available for voting. In addition, if 2 protest symbols are rolled, the group also turns over a political crisis card. This triggers a one-off event which impacts the entire group. Next up, players propose a policy card for voting by the group. This is really the heart of the game. Start by proposing an available policy, which is any policy that is revealed at the bottom of a column of the policy landscape. You'll note that policies are either red, green, or blue to indicate that they are worker, progressive, or big business policies respectively. This will factor into how constituent cards are scored at the end of the game.
Players discuss, promise, build alliances, lie about how much they care about passing this policy. And then they take their influence and smear, put their fist in the middle, and reveal it together. If enough influence is contributed by the group to pass the policy passes. But be careful, because players don't have to do what they promised.
Once each player has revealed their contribution, the first job is to direct smear. Starting with the policy proposer, each player who contributed a smear token puts their smear into another player's open hand. Each smear cancels 1 influence token. Add up the amount of influence contributed in the vote, and if it equals or exceeds the cost of the policy, marked here in the top right of the policy card, the policy passes.
Yeah, that's right. Smear is a personal attack. It doesn't just reduce the overall influence contributed in a vote by one, it removes one of the influence tokens contributed by another player. In this way, even if the policy passes, Smear can allow you to influence the distribution of points scored on a policy. If a policy passes, it gets placed into the past policy section of the playing board, and players that contribute influence score points. The player who contributes the most influence takes first place. The player who contributed the second most influence takes second place, and so on. They place their coloured supporter marker cubes on the policy card. These points will be tallied at the end of the game.
If two players contribute the same amount of influence after Smear is taken off, ties are split in a clockwise direction from the policy proposer. In the example above, the proposer contributed no influence, so doesn't win points on this policy. The hand with the blue sleeve takes first place, and the hand with the grey sleeve in the top left takes second place. The player who contributed 3 influence but was smeared down to 2 influence gets no points. Some policies also have special effects printed on the bottom of the card. These can take place immediately or impact the scoring of constituents at the end of the game.
If the total influence minus smear is less than the cost of a policy, it doesn't pass and it gets sent to the policy wasteland, where it can no longer be proposed. Remember, all influence and smear contributed in a vote gets discarded back to the stock, whether or not the policy passes. So be careful where you spend your resources, and make sure you can trust your alliances. You'll also notice that certain policies might be referenced on your special interest card. If it's in the support section, you want the policy to pass. If it's in the opposed section, you don't want it to pass. This will impact scoring at the end of the game. So that's the core premise of the game. That continues until 2 headline policies have been proposed. When the second headline policy is proposed, all players take 1 more turn and the game ends. Scoring is outlined on page 13 of the rulebook, but to summarise, you add your score across 3 elements. First, add up the power points from each of the policies that you have sponsored throughout the game, as indicated by your supporter marker cube. Second, to score your constituent cards, look at the past policy section of the board. Notice which constituent group has the majority of policies passed. Every constituent card of this type in the game scores 3 power points. Every constituent card of the type with the second most policies passed scores 1 point. If 2 constituent types are tied for first or second, each card of that type scores 1.
Some policies increase the value of constituents when they are passed. The card above increases the value of each big business constituent card in every player's hand by 1.
Third, score your special interest. For each policy in the support section that has passed, and you have a supporter marker on, score the indicated number of points. For each policy in the opposed section that has passed, you lose the indicated number of points. And if you have achieved all of the above objectives, score the jackpot indicated. Add those 3 scores together and you have your total score.
So that's it. It's a pretty simple game, easy to get the hang of. There's a few elements of strategy in there, but at its heart, it's a social game, where players are invited to debate ridiculous policies, make promises to each other, and ultimately lie to each other. Throughout developing it, we've had a lot of belly laughs and a few incidences of deep, cutting betrayal, and I wish you luck in having more of the former than the latter.